Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.
Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. With Pakistan locked in an ever-increasing, widening and deepening web of crises, constitutional, political and economic, we ask, how concerned should we in India be? Joining me to answer that key question is one of our foremost experts on Pakistan, former High Commissioner to Islamabad and former Director General of the Indian Council of World Affairs, TCA, Raghavan. Mr. Raghavan, let me repeat that essential question. With Pakistan caught in a deepening and worsening web of crises, constitutional, political, and economic, and additionally with terrorism becoming an increasing problem, how concerned should we be in India?
Well, thank you for inviting me to your show. Evidently, because of the long adversarial nature of our relationship with Pakistan, we have to be very concerned about whatever is happening over there. And certainly, it goes without saying, have to be on our guard that spillover developments from that internal churn do not impact us adversely. So, yes, I would say we need to be certainly on top of all the developments in Afghanistan and very, very watchful about the possible impact on us.
Let me quote to you what Michael Kugelman of the Wilson Center in Washington, D.C. has told the BBC just a couple of days ago. He says, and I'm quoting him, when your rival neighbor, a nation that's volatile even at the best of times, is experiencing severe political stress, bouts of large-scale unrest, and especially concerns about the cohesiveness of the army leadership, then you should be worried. Would you go as strong as that? We need to be worried in India, not just concerned?
I would agree. I think given the state of or the intensity of the situation in Pakistan, there is every reason for us to be worried. And that worry can have different dimensions because contrary to the view of some who think that chronic instability in Pakistan is something which serves our interest. I am in agreement with those that such chronic instability is not good in terms of our own national interests. So certainly, given the fact that we know more this time, or we have heard more this time about possible rifts in the army, about the extent of political polarization, about the severe civil-military differences which have cropped up, there is every cause for us to not just be concerned, but also worried.
Let's discuss a couple of scenarios that could develop. First, with the Pakistan army distracted by its enormous troubles at home, is it likely that it could take its eyes off terrorist groups like the LET and the Jaish, who, in turn, sensing an opportunity, could step up their anti-Indian activity? Is that a credible fear at the moment?
Well, to be realistic, that fear has always existed with Pakistan, because whatever might be one's opinion of the Pakistan military, The fact is they are not effective in controlling structures which they create. And that applies both to politicians who grow rogue, but also to terrorist outfits. So that threat of terrorist attack, either with or without the complicity of the Pakistan military, has always been there and will certainly continue to be there. Given the chaos in Pakistan, does that go up by a few notches? Possibly it does.
Okay. When you say go up by a few notches and possibly does that mean it's gone up fairly considerably or just marginally?
Well, it's very difficult to make that evaluation. I don't think we can be in a position where we relax a bit because Pakistan is fully stable or there is a harmonious situation prevailing within it. And we need to be more concerned because of internal turmoil. I think we have to be constantly on our guard. But the fact that there is so much civil strife and civil military dissonance in Pakistan is an additional factor for us to take into account as we evaluate our own internal and external security threats.
At this point, let me ask you a specific question. In the connection of the issue that we're discussing, are you worried about the G20 meeting in Srinagar, which begins today and continues till the 24th? Could that G20 meeting in Srinagar provide a tempting target for terrorists who, as you know, have already stepped up their activity fairly worryingly in recent weeks in the Poonch-Rajouri area? I know Srinagar is not quite there, but it is a tempting target that this meeting provides, and should we be concerned?
Well, certainly, high-profile events in Jammu and Kashmir, or for that matter, elsewhere in India, do create a window of opportunity for terrorists who want publicity in terms of attacks, timed at certain times for maximum impact. So, yes, I would say the G20 meeting adds to the overall security threats that we confront.
Was it wise to hold the meeting? Or was this something that we have to do and bite the bullet and get on with it?
Well, I would say that is a call which the government has to take. But certainly we cannot be deterred by the possible threats of terrorist attacks from embarking on something which we want to do. I think to do so would be a cop-out and would not really be in the traditions of Indian governance. This question, for instance, came up in the past once at the inauguration of the Srinagar Muzaffarabad bus when the then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh had gone to Srinagar to inaugurate the bus, and there were major terrorist attacks. And there was the view that this was, in a way, providing a target. But the fact is that you wanted to do it because you felt that was the direction to take. So you cannot let terrorist attacks or the fear of terrorist attacks deter you from embarking on a course of action you have decided.
Let me put to you a second scenario that could develop as a result of the critical confusion in Pakistan. As Pakistan's army's image and standing within the country gets steadily weaker, do you think there's a possibility it might seek to assert control by signaling strength on the Kashmir front, leading to either an increase in cross-border activity or even a breakdown of the ceasefire on the LOC, which has held fairly remarkably well over the last 2 years?
Well, that factor is always there at a time of civil-military strife or when the image of the Pakistan army is dented. That is a general consideration which is always there, but it's not to say that that general consideration is always valid. We don't have to embark on the route of the self-fulfilling prophecy that this is something inevitably which is going to happen because logically it appears so. I do think that while there may be greater dissonance in the Pakistan military today than there has been in the past, but there will also be a larger awareness in the higher command of the military as to is it in their overall interest to create a situation with India by stepping away from the ceasefire or by any other steps. I think possibly there will be enough people within the Pakistan military who feel that that would not be in their overall interests.
So this second scenario, you're not as concerned about as you were about the first. Have I understood that correctly?
I'm generally concerned. I think because you cannot rule out any particular scenario. I'm just cautious about going down, as I said, the route of self-fulfilling prophecy and imagining or thinking that the worst has about to happen or has happened. It's good to be prepared for different situations, but not necessarily act as if those worst case scenarios are upon you.
Let me at this stage slightly widen our discussion. We're talking about what I called increasing, widening, and deepening web of crises in Pakistan, but I defined them initially as constitutional, political, and economic. I want to now raise a possibility of a developing crisis, and I'm using my words carefully. I'm not sure if it's a full-fledged crisis yet, but it's a developing crisis within the Pakistan army. There are doubts emerging that General Munir, the army chief, may not be fully in control. And one reason why people have these doubts is that after Lieutenant General Ghani was sacked as Lahore Corps commander on the 9th or 10th of March, websites within Pakistan, I'm not talking about foreign websites, but websites within Pakistan show two different generals as his successor. First, the successor was shown as Lieutenant General Fayaz Hussain Shah. But then as of the last 3-4 days, the successor is shown as Lieutenant General Amir Raza. This means that in the course of 13-14 days, the Lahore Corps commander has changed 3 times. Does this indicate that there is tension within the higher ranks of the army, that General Munir, the army chief, does not have complete control, or perhaps he doesn't have the full loyalty of his full generals? And secondly, if those doubts are credible, how worrying are they? How much more do they add to this mix of crises in the country?
Well, these rumors about the Lahore Corps commander have been there for the past week or so. I don't think anyone really knows what is happening. As you point out, that most of this information is coming from Pakistani journalists themselves. To some extent, events playing out in Pakistan have greater transparency today than they have ever had before. But we still certainly don't know what is the situation regarding the Lahore Corps commander. It is also a fact that the current chief, who has been in position only since end November, has not had the time to stamp his authority on the higher command. Usually in Pakistan, that happens when he has been able to reshuffle the senior generals and get a team of his choice in place. That has not happened so far, and it was expected that that would happen by September, October, but the crisis developed and matured before that. So yes, there is this question about whether the Pakistan Army Chief is fully in control and what does that mean? Are there serious rifts in the higher command? At the same time, my own feeling is that the Pakistan Army remains a disciplined formation. The Army Chief is certainly conscious of the fact that he has to put the full weight of his authority behind what he is doing, which is why he has been touring quite feverishly different corps headquarters over the past 3 or 4 days. So far, apart from the sacking of the Lahore Corps commander and this uncertainty about who has been appointed in his place, there is no other significant sign which suggests deep rifts or further rifts. My sense is that the higher command will rally around him, and certainly the torching of the Corps commander's house in Lahore has acted to consolidate the opinion within the military behind the chief, to some extent at least. I think the kind of noises which were emerging from ex-servicemen and former retired officers, those have gone down by quite a few steps. So overall, I think we see a situation where the command is going to hold together. But these are uncertain times for Pakistan, and nobody is entirely very sure.
2 quick questions. Am I right in saying that this is the first time after literally decades that the authority of the army chief of the Pakistan army seems to be in question. That hasn't happened for a very long time. And secondly, do you believe that there are, in fact, fissures between Jawans and lower rank officers and the top generals over the issue of Imran? And is that another weakening element for the army?
Well, you're right that these kind of fissures have erupted after some time because I think this time primarily because the transition from one chief to the other was itself quite a messy affair. But it's not as if these fissures are totally unknown or we have to go deep into Pakistan history to look up for them. They have happened before, especially during times of civil-military imbalance or civil-military dissonance. Musharraf, for instance, was sacked when he was returning to Pakistan and someone else was appointed as army chief and then there was a coup. There have been cases like this. General Munir himself was removed as DG ISI after only a few months in the post, and that is when our people say the iron entered his soul with regard to Imran Khan. So it's not it's the present situation is unusual, but it's not unprecedented.
I think sorry, please carry on.
On the question of fissures going down to the Jawan level and the junior officer level, to my knowledge, we have heard less about that. The real signs of dissonance have come from retired officers, colonels, brigadiers, a few general officers, and particularly signs of dissonance have come from the families of serving senior officers. Imran Khan has a wide appeal, has almost a cult-like status, but it's also an appeal which is spearheaded by the middle class, which is dissatisfied with the old style of politics, and they want change quickly, and they think that Imran Khan can deliver that change. We hear less about peasant involvement or peasant commitment to his movement, and that is really the constituency from which the rank and file are recruited. So we hear less about that. I don't see that as a major factor. Certainly there is some dissonance from retired officers, serving officers, families, the upper crust of Pakistan society in a sense.
Ought we to be concerned, Mr. Raghavan, about the security of Pakistan's nuclear weapons? Could they fall into the wrong hands because of the turmoil in the country and perhaps the tensions within the top brass of the army? Or is that an exaggerated fear?
To my mind, at this stage, it is an exaggerated fear because those fears have always been there. We've had the views in the past about Zia's generals, who are deeply committed Islamic extremists taking control of nuclear weapons, or terrorist outfits seeking control of nuclear weapons. I think the key question is the command structure, is the higher command structure in the Pakistan Army intact? If it is not intact, I think we go into a totally uncharted domain. Right now, signs are there which we should be monitoring, but I don't think there is a serious possibility of the military command structure breaking into a number of factions.
Let me at this point, Mr. Raghavan, widen the ambit of our discussion one more time. There is another aspect of the crisis in Pakistan. Social unrest caused by both the treatment of Imran Khan, but perhaps more importantly, social unrest caused by the economic crisis, with inflation soaring above 36% and a shortage of critical essential food items. How concerning is this social unrest for us?
Well, to my mind, the social unrest will have less of a direct impact on us. There are these exaggerated fears about the economy totally imploding and refugees coming into India. To my mind, those fears are exaggerated. Pakistan has been, if one sees the chronology of the current crisis, beginning with Imran Khan's removal in a vote of confidence, it was followed almost immediately thereafter by a major climatic crisis. in the form of very, very damaging floods. And some of the flooded areas were quite close to the Indian borders, especially on the Sindh-Rajasthan sector. There's thereafter been a very, very major and deep economic crisis. The Pakistan currency has depreciated by 50% in about 10, 11 months. But we've seen no signs that this has propelled people to think of abandoning their homes and moving towards India. There are some exaggerated noises to that effect in some circles in India, but I think those are exaggerated fears. I think social unrest in Pakistan is certainly increasing, and it's possibly going to continue to increase, but it doesn't have a direct impact on us. It has so far, there is no sign that the state structures in Pakistan are imploding. And I don't see that happening, at least in a realistic sense.
Let me pick up on something which in the answer you've just given you nailed, but I'll invite you to nail it firmly. There are some people in India who talk of Pakistan imploding, not just the economy, but the politics of the country and its integrity, its social cohesion. Is that really a possibility? Or is it better explained by saying this is the exaggerated schadenfreude on the part of people in India who viscerally don't like Pakistan?
I think it's an exaggerated fear or an exaggerated schadenfreude, as you say. The fact is, if one looks at the past quarter century, Pakistan has had recurrent crises. This time, 3 or 4 different kinds of crises have come together. So therefore, the dramatic intensity of it has increased and the magnitude has increased. But it's not a new situation for Pakistan to be battling a crisis of these varieties. I think the schadenfreude is inevitable in India, given the adversarial nature of our relationship and the fact that so many terrorist attacks have been carried out against civilians. So it is inevitable. But I would be, in a sense, we will have to abandon schadenfreude if there is a realistic threat of Pakistan cracking up or of extremists gaining the upper hand in the running of the country there, because this is a country with nuclear weapons with whom you have a deeply adversarial history. So certainly stability in that country also is part of your national interest.
We're coming to the end of this interview. Let me ask you 2 more questions. Given everything that we've discussed, as someone who understands Pakistan perhaps better than most people, and I shall point out to the audience, you've done several tenures there. In addition to being High Commissioner, you were also a few years before that Deputy High Commissioner, and you were also in charge of the Pakistan desk in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for a very long time. Altogether, your knowledge of that country is probably unsurpassed. And this leads directly to one of those 2 last questions. What should be the Indian government's response to the problems across the border, particularly in view of the possibility that they could deteriorate? So far, we've waited and watched. Is that the wisest course of action?
I would think so. Our traditional postures, whenever Pakistan has gone through a domestic churn, has been to try to insulate ourselves from what is happening in that churn. Don't become a factor in that mess. And by and large, that appears to be the position now, and I think it's a wise position. It's an entirely domestic situation. There is very little that any external power very little that an external power can do to control it. So even apart from India, none of Pakistan's other external powers are in a position to control this current situation. It is something which Pakistan has to resolve for itself. So we should stay out of that domestic churn, insulate ourselves from it to the extent possible. And as you say, wait and watch to see what happens.
My last question, is there a case for offering economic assistance? And I really only mean economic assistance. For instance, wheat or vegetables. Would that not enhance our standing in the South Asia region, where we are very keen to be recognized as the leaders? And secondly, surely our problem is with the government in Pakistan, not the suffering people of Pakistan. Offering them economic assistance could build some body of support in that country that is more willing to be realistic towards India. So is there a case for offering economic assistance to a neighbor whose countrymen were our countrymen 75 years ago?
Well, any such offer from India will not be seen as a benign. Most Pakistanis would see it as Indians relishing the difficulties which Pakistanis are facing. So we should resist any such temptation. Whatever we can do is in any case going to be limited. And given the intensity of events in Pakistan just now, I think we should refrain from any optical gestures. As I said, our policy in the past always was that try to insulate yourself from a domestic churn, don't become a factor in it. And it's a wise policy to my mind, and we should stick with it.
Ms. Raghavan, I thank you for the time you've given me. And in particular, I thank you for opening the eyes of the audience to a country that we pretend we know better than we do, but which you understand far better than anyone else. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.